Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be going over tasks under the various question types of PTE Academic test. Since I uploaded this video last week Sunday, I've gotten a couple of questions in the comment section, people asking how to approach describe image questions, retell lecture questions, the reading and writing, fill in the blanks, and all of that good stuff. And we even planned that we're going to go live yesterday, but life happened. I'm so sorry guys. I've never gone live on my channel, so when I attempted to do it yesterday, my channel was like, we have to use 24 hours window period to like set things up for you, and I couldn't do it yesterday. So a video would be the best way to go, and that's why I'm doing this right now. So without further ado, let's get into the lecture for today. Okay, so welcome to PTE Practice with Belinda. In this practice, we're going to be looking at these various question types in 3 different sections of the PTE Academic. In the speaking and the writing and reading sections, we're going to be looking at read aloud, describe image, and retell lecture for speaking. For writing, we're going to be looking at summarize written text, write essay. And then for reading, we're going to be looking at the reading and writing fill in blank. We're also going to be looking at the reorder paragraphs and the multiple choice single answer question type. Now, for each question task that we're going to, each question type tasks that we're going to look at, I'm going to mention a tip for that, and you just pay attention and try to flow with me, and then you can practice. You can pause the video and practice, okay? Now let's begin. For read aloud, I need you to focus on clarity and fluency rather than speed. But don't pause unnecessarily. If you make any small mistakes, keep going, just move on. Now, look at this question type, this question on your screen, right? It says in 40 seconds, you must read this text aloud as naturally and clearly as possible. You have 40 seconds to read aloud. Now it says to prepare in 40 seconds, and then you have 40 seconds separately to read aloud. From here, we can see that it's counting down, and it says 33 seconds. I just got the screenshot from the internet. So we're going to set a timer for 40 seconds and try to skim through this text and then read it aloud in 40 seconds again. Hey Siri, please set a timer for 40 seconds.
40 seconds, counting down.
Thank you. Now, looking at this, we'll say, this is the text. You can notice that there are commas here, full stop and commas at just different points, right? Quickly skim through. What words do you think you might have a hard time pronouncing? This is a long word, underdeveloped, underdeveloped. Hey Siri, please set another timer for 40 seconds.
40 seconds, counting down.
Now begin to read. Therefore, the working unions in modern society are not very important. They preserve their functions only in the underdeveloped countries. On the contrary, in the developed states, workers refuse to join the unions, preferring individual work. Thus, working unions cannot survive the assault of modern economic trends and slowly move to a complete decline. Their initial purposes have little to do with the hectic pace of modern life. I still have 5 seconds, and you have read aloud clearly, fluently. Notice how I made pauses when they were full stops. So it's very important that you always pause, okay? Not unnecessarily, but as required. Now let's move on to the next text. We have 25 seconds to go over this text, and then we are going to record ourselves reading it aloud for 40 seconds. Make sure that when you practice, you time yourself. Don't just practice without timing yourself. Learn to work with time so that on that day, the timing would not surprise you at all. You'll be used to it by then. Hey Siri, please set a timer for 25 seconds.
25 seconds, counting down.
Now, have a look at this, right? We have this text says, new study. Suggest humans. What word is this? Pre-wired. Analyzing. Just words that you probably don't use in normal SEMs every single day. Researchers. Language network. Visual word form area. Hey Siri. Please set a timer for 40 seconds.
40 seconds, counting down.
Now let's read. A new study suggests that humans are born with a part of their brain that is pre-wired to be receptive to seeing words and letters, setting the stage at birth for people to learn how to read. Analyzing brain scans of newborns, researchers found that this part of the brain, called the visual word form area, is connected to the language network of the brain. And I have 10 more seconds to go, but I'm done recording. So I can just move to the next question. I'm going to go over this one. I feel like this is going to be slightly a difficult one to read just because of the numbers that are included here. So I want us to practice this as well. Now you see that this prompt is different from the prompts that you saw in the first question. It says in 30 seconds. So it means you have 30 seconds to prepare and then you have 30 seconds to read aloud. So let's try to do this one by ourselves. Hey Siri, please set a timer for 30 seconds.
30 seconds, counting down.
Now here we go. So we're skimming through. First word, protozoa, single-celled organisms, 50,000. Microscopic. Now this is 1 over 200. So you can say 1 over 200. Pronounce this completely, millimeter. Hey Siri, set another timer for 30 seconds, please.
30 seconds, counting down.
Start reading. Protozoa are a very diverse group of single-celled organisms with more than 50,000 different types presented. The vast majority are microscopic, many measuring less than 1 over 200 millimeters, but some, such as the freshwater spirostomum, may reach 3 millimeters in length, large enough to enable it to be seen with the naked eye. So it's very important that you pay attention to the timing. It's going to be on your screen on that day, so pay attention to that whilst you are reading the text. The way that this is going to go, don't say 3 mm. Mm is millimeter, cm centimeter, and if you were to see kg, kilograms, if you were to see g, grams. But we're talking about length here, so they usually measure length in meters. So you have to make sure to skim through really quick and find words that you've never heard of before. This is my first time seeing this word, like in my life. So it'd be good to try pronouncing the word yourself before the timer goes. So for the next question type that we have the describe image question type. Now with this question type, here are a few tips that I would recommend when you are trying to solve these questions. Now, with the describe image, just make sure that you're speaking continuously. Whatever you're doing, you're talking, okay? Even if you miss a detail or you get confused down the line, just make sure that you don't pause for too long. If you miss the details, just rephrase the main idea. So just make sure that you are speaking whatever you're doing until your time is up. Also, just follow a simple structure. Introduce the image and talk about the steps, then give us the key details in the image, and then conclude. Let's try to practice this. Let's use about 40 seconds to get a clear idea of what this is going to be. Now with describe images, I forgot to mention describe images. We're going to have different images on that day. One, you could have an image like this showing a cycle. The images can take any form. Okay, graphs, charts, pie chart, bar chart, graphs, line graphs. Just think about the different forms that the images can take so that nothing surprises you at the exam, and practice different image types. There's even maps. Now we have about 40 seconds to prepare. That's usually what you're given, or possibly less. It might be 30 seconds. So let's time ourselves with preparing for 30 seconds just to see. Hey Siri, please set a timer for 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Count.
Now from the image we can see that we have the design process of a house. Usually they would always see like the title of what the image is on top of this place. So that's what you're going to use as your introduction. Now look at the steps. First step is meeting with your client. So basically client understanding needs. Last step is post-construction. Now note that you don't have to mention everything that you see, but try to capture the general idea of what it is. So let's try to go over this in 40 seconds. Hey Siri, please set a timer for 40 seconds.
40 seconds.
The image shows the design process for a new house, beginning with the client stage down to the post-construction stage. In the initial stages, the constructors meet with the client and understand their needs, and then they begin the design and develop concepts, and then a contract is signed and a price is fixed for quotation. Later, construction begins and houses are demolished, after which post-construction happens where there's a 6-month maintenance and check and then a house is built. So you see how I mentioned key things that are involved in the process of building a house, basically, and I also made sure that I stayed within the time frame of 40 seconds, right? So you're working on a time crunch, and notice how I wasn't too fast with speaking, just taking it step by step. Don't overthink it. With describe images, you don't have to take your notes and marker and note anything down. Everything that you need to talk about is already on your screen. Now let's look at another example of a describe image question type. Here we have, what is this thing? It's a bar chart. Now where's the title? Most times titles can be on top or just underneath. So here we're seeing household with the access of the internet, and it's across 4 years, right? 2017 to 2020. This is the y-axis. It shows you percentage, and the x-axis shows you years. Now let's try to record. Hey Siri, please set a timer for 40 seconds.
40 seconds, counting down.
The image shows a bar chart representing the percentage of households with the access to internet in the UK between the years 2017 to 2020. In 2017, it can be seen that over 40% of households had access to the internet, which is the lowest percentage in the image, compared to the percentage of over 70% in the year 2020. Let's move on to the Retell Lecture. So with the Retell Lecture, we're going to listen to a lecture and then we're going to try to note the main points. So over here, I've written down a simple template that you can use, right? This is exactly how I explained retold lectures back during the time when I wrote my test. So you see, the lecture was about, you talk about mention the main topic of the lecture, the speaker discussed, you mentioned one key point and explained another key point. Additionally, they mentioned this key point. In conclusion, the lecture highlighted, you can just summarize the entire thing or state the main idea. So I wrote this place for lecture notes. It's where I'm going to include the lecture notes. So we'll listen to the lecture together and then we'll try to answer the question.
Women scientists at research universities still face barriers in hiring and promotion, and the U.S. is thus being deprived of an important source of scientific talent. Those are the findings in a report titled Beyond Bias and Barriers, Fulfilling the Potential of Women in Academic Science and Engineering. The report was issued this week by the National Academy of Science and associated institutions. Yale biophysics and biochemistry professor Joan Stites served on the committee that wrote the report.
It's not overt prejudice, but rather the accumulation of a lot of little things that add up to discourage women.
The report notes that women science faculty are paid less and promoted more slowly despite comparable productivity as men. It includes some 24 recommendations to try to address the situation.
I hope that it won't be like so many reports that have gone before it, where 10 years later, people look around and see that really nothing's happened.
So I just made sure to write about 3 key things that I heard. It's about barrier in research for women when it comes to promotion and just all-around career growth, right, in research. So let's go. Hey Siri. Please set a timer for 40 seconds.
40 seconds, counting down.
Now, the lecture was about barrier in research, especially for women. The speaker discussed the barriers that women face in terms of academic science and engineering. Additionally, the speaker mentioned how women are paid less compared to men in the same field of research. In conclusion, the lecture highlighted the discrimination against women when it comes to their career growth in research. Make sure you don't use shorthand or acronyms that you would not remember when you are about to go over the lecture to retell it. Keep it simple, don't overdo it. If you've mentioned barriers, that's a keyword. If you've mentioned women, if you've mentioned research, because they mentioned research consecutively in the lecture. If you've mentioned that they are paid less, and this is discriminatory because it is. Just use whatever words. You don't have to overthink it. You can just rephrase the main idea. Find this person on YouTube and you can get access to PTE practice test retell lecture questions, okay? Thank you. Now let's move on to summarize written text. Now at the exam, you're going to be given a prompt like this one and you have 10 minutes to complete this task. Not the entire writing task, just this task in itself. And the 10 minutes are just going to be counting down somewhere around the right hand corner of your screen. So you can see that you have just 10 minutes to go over this. So let us try to summarize this written text in one sentence. It's just how it's written, in one sentence. So this is expected in 5 to 75 words, okay? Now let's try that. I'm going to go down. With the summarized written text, one, it is one sentence only. So you're supposed to write between 5 to 75 words. And you cannot write a full stop until you're ending the sentence. Only one full stop is required. But you can use so many commas and use connectors like while, which, however, but, focus on the main idea of the text, okay? Don't try to include minor details. There are some details that is just building on what the main idea was. So the first attempt is we're going to try to summarize find a summary of the first one, then try to join it with the summary of the last one. Now, what is the most common thing that we see? Read this. You have 10 minutes, so it's not like it's 10 seconds. Spend your time reading this. So they said recording artists are frequently the face of commercial products, and children and adolescents are frequently their target audience. Now, who are adolescents? Teenagers, like children that have passed the childhood stage. Now, a new study by researchers at NYU Langone Medical Center finds that the vast majority of the food and beverage products marketed by some of the most popular music stars are unhealthy. Now, they've mentioned that they are the face of this commercial product, and this commercial products that they are actually advertising is unhealthy. And how was this found out? It was in a study that was carried out by NYU. This type of advertising has contributed to the alarming rate in childhood and teen obesity in America. The authors won. Who are the authors? The author of the study that was carried out at NYU Langone Medical Center. Now, they mentioned childhood and teen obesity here. Notice how they mention children and adolescents here. So they are basically talking about the same thing. We're going to start the whole thing with a study. Sorry, this is in caps. A study by, you take the name of this place, NYU Langone Medical Center. A study by NYU Langone Medical Center. We've started our sentence, right? So I would go for highlight because it's highlighting that this is leading to obesity in children. Highlights. Don't forget that the first word should be in caps, right? If with A is in caps, then every other thing should follow like that. Notice how Langone Medical Center, even though it was in between sentences, was written with each word, the first letter of each word being capitalized. So make sure to pay attention to that. Langone Medical, put this one too as center capitalized. Now, any other thing that follows would be in small letter, but we're talking about a place. So this is a proper noun. That's why every word will be capitalized. So pay attention to that. It's very important. Highlight that. Now, what are they talking about in this first paragraph? Musical artists, So we can say musical artists. That musical artists. Say musical artists, highlights and musical artists constantly, or you can still use frequently because it doesn't matter if constantly is shorter than frequently, it's still one word. You can use the same frequently. You can use the words in the passage as long as you're keeping it in one sentence and you're using connectors to make sense of the entire thing that you're writing. So you can write, a study by NYU Langone Medical Center highlights that musical artists constantly advertise unhealthy food and drinks. They mentioned here food and beverage products. We can copy the same thing that was written here and beverage products, just to be on the safer side, because we will not refer to tea as drink. We could say beverage is the general term for all the drinkables. Which I'm using which because after they talked about the advertising, they mentioned how it's the reason for obesity, increased obesity, which has led to increased obesity, increased rate of obesity in childhood, in children and adolescents. So let's see how far we've come and see if any of the things we've written make sense. A study by NYU Langone Medical Center highlights that musical artists constantly advertise unhealthy food and beverage products, which has led to increased rates of obesity in children and adolescents. Or you can just write, which has led to increased childhood and teen obesity, right? Or you can just use this one here. These are the key, this is a key word. Now, I want to also include this second paragraph. Read it and see if there's anything that we can get from there. Now, soda and other sugary drinks, fast food and sweets are amongst the most common foods that are endorsed by these famous music personalities. According to the descriptive study, which published June 6 in Pediatrics. Equally alarming, none of the music stars identified in the study endorsed fruits, vegetables, or whole grains. Now, let's change this advertise to endorse. We've seen another word from the passage. Right? We change that to endorse. So it's like approving something as good so that other people can experience that thing for themselves. So that's what endorsing means. Now, linkers, we can say with, the word with none. So by none we mean the musical artists. Over here they said none of them is endorsing this. So if you're endorsing something, you're promoting it, like you're saying in public, this is good, people should try it. With none, promoting, or you can reuse the word endorsing. It really doesn't matter. The point is you're making sense of whatever you're writing. That's the most important thing. With none, promoting. Now let's look at this. Promoting fruits. Mention fruits, comma, vegetables, all whole grains, full stop. This is your one sentence. Now, this is very, 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 very interesting how we've put this together. Now, let's highlight this and see how many words that is. So over here, we can see that we have 38 words, which is a great thing. Look, you don't have to write up to 75. That's why the one sentence, the rule is 5 to 75 words. Here's another text. I included this one so you could use it to practice. It would be nice to see you in the comments writing the sentence after summarizing this. So I'm going to give you time to just screenshot this and write it in the comments below, if you please, and we would go over it together. Now we have write essay. So now with writing essay, one thing about this thing is it's very tricky, but there's a way to not overcomplicate things. Okay, so I've written down tips that I would use and that I have used and that I would use again if I was writing this test again. First tip, stick to the question prompt. So they would always give you 20 minutes to write this essay of 300 words, and they will tell you something like you have 20 minutes to plan, write, and revise. So by revise, they mean revise is like revision, like go over it and make sure that your spelling and everything is correct before you submit. That's what they mean. So stick to the question prompt. Don't do anything outside the question prompt. Whatever they ask you to do is what you should be doing. 2. Plan your essay and organize your thoughts after you've critically assessed the essay question promptly. So depending on what essay type you're giving, sometimes it's about opinions and they're like, some people think this is this and some people think this is that. What do you think? So they're expecting you to side with one of these individuals, like these opposing sides, supporting side, which one are you on? And then there are some that would ask you to do like an advantage or disadvantage. But if you go over to Language Academy, you really would see a structured prompt if that's what you're looking for. Because I just used the prompt as guidance to write my own essays back then. And to be very honest, I don't remember how I wrote my essay in my exam, but I do remember one thing. I used 4 paragraphs. So basically, the first paragraph was my introduction into the question prompt for the essay, and then the 2 body paragraphs. So basically, if it was about 2 different opinions, supporting and opposing, if it was about advantage and disadvantage, the first one was talking about advantage or was supporting, and the second one was about disadvantages or was disapproving or opposing. So that being said, it was basically 2, and then there's a concluding paragraph, so that makes it 4, right? Now, make sure that you're writing 200 words. If you're asked to write up to 300, keep it from like 250 to 300. These are the tips that I would give you for writing. If you need a structured template, because of how the essay questions are always different, I couldn't provide a template. I'd have to provide for different ones. What I would advise is make sure you're practicing. Whatever template you're using online, make sure you're practicing. Stick to trying to understand how to approach the question prompt, okay? So now with the reorder sentences, right? Or reorder paragraphs rather, the first most important thing you need to note is that you have to find the topic sentence. Now, what is the topic sentence? The topic sentence is the paragraph in which the main idea was discussed. For this first one, the 2 traditions eventually merge. What traditions doesn't show main sentence? They're referring to something. The second one is another historical connection to Halloween. This is continuing something that they have mentioned concerning Halloween. This cannot be our leading sentence, okay? Third one, Halloween is a holiday celebrated each year on October 31st. Now let's read the next one. Don't just conclude that, because this makes a lot of sense, let's just go with that. Make sure you read the other one. Sometimes these things can be very, 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 very tricky. Now let's read the 4th one. Thus, Halloween. Thus there already made it not the leading sentence, because this is just like saying Belinda is a YouTuber. Thus, she makes videos and posts on YouTube. You understand? It's like a continuing sentence of the main thing or of something that follows the main thing. This other one says, it is related it. What is it? Okay? So now let's go back to our third, the one that shows us the most important way of answering these reorder paragraphs. Main sentence. This is our main sentence. Halloween is a holiday celebrated each year on October 31st. That's exactly how you know what is he talking about holiday. You know Halloween, what is it? A holiday. When is it celebrated? October 31st. It gives you a clear idea of what this entire thing is about. So the first one here is C, okay? So you see A, B, C. So the first order here is C. C, comma. Now let's look for the next order. So 8, okay? So let's go and see what is referring to Halloween. Over here we have it. It is related to an ancient Celtic festival where people light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off ghosts. So E. Now read these sentences together and see if it makes sense to you. Halloween is a holiday celebrated each year on October 31st. It is related to, see how that just blends perfectly? There is no way it can go from this to another, just like that. Another historical connection. There's no way it can just go from this to B immediately. This E fits. Make sure you're reading. If you're confused, just make sure that you're reading. After setting the sentences, just make sure you're reading. You're like, that sounds about right in my head. It always, when it does, you just know that you're on the right track. Okay, now let's look for the third one. So this one has been cancelled out, and this one has been cancelled out. The best way to probably go through this, what's that? Okay, best way to go through with this would be to use these markers. I just realized. So we're going to go with this first. So we're going to make this our A, right? And then we're going to make this our B. Okay, so C, E, that's our AB in form of reorder. So say is relating to this, incorporate, it's a word of ghosts, right? And then here they said another historical connection to Halloween comes from the 8th century AD, when Pope Gregory proclaimed November 1st to be All Saints' Day, right? See where they now mentioned All Saints' Day first before they started talking about. Thus, Halloween evolved into an event incorporating the saints as well as ghosts and involving dressing up in scary costumes. So here is your C, right? And here is your D. And finally, we have E. So the arrangement here is C, E, B, D, A. That is how this order goes. So this is how you're expected to put this over here. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Now let's move on to the next question type. Alright, so next question type that we have is the multiple choice single answer. Alright, so now a good way to answer this would be, first of all, read the questions first. Read the question first. Then you scan the answer and don't overthink it. Just eliminate the wrong answers because you only need one single answer. Okay? So let's do this. Read the question first. What did they ask you to do? They said, which of the following most accurately summarizes the opinion of the author in the text? So they're asking you to summarize this text. Practically, which of this one summarizes this text? So now let's scan the answers. Okay? They said the author, that's the he that they're referring to here. He has a firm belief that until today, no one has been able to replace Rembrandt's art. Now let's look at any of the part where it mentions Rembrandt and art. We see Rembrandt being mentioned here. Rembrandt lived for 400 years through his art. We don't see anything about anybody replacing anything in the first paragraph. Let's have a look at the second one. Second paragraph. Over here. See? That no painter has been able to exhibit an ability to paint as extraordinary as Rembrandt, who had already been dead by then, who had already died by then. The year that they were looking at is in the year 1670. It's very important for you to pay attention to what comes before. Okay? The year 1670. What does this answer say? It says, until today. This is a very current thing. It doesn't say currently no one has been able to. This is back in the year. Back in the year 1670. Rufo said this in 1670. That was years ago. He didn't say until today. There's no part where it mentions until today. So we're eliminating this answer simply because there was no part where it mentioned that they are looking at recent times. This was back in the year 1670. Now let's move on to the next one. He tried to prove that Rembrandt has not been completely understood by critics. Now let's scan through and see if there's a part where it mentions critics and all. Okay? Now, in this place, you can see that it explicitly mentioned critics. It didn't say critics explicitly, but it used a different term to describe them. So see here, it says that during this time period, many views and opinions have oscillated. Now, oscillated, what this word stands for is fluctuating. like going from this to this, So oscillated from praise to scathing remarks and vice versa. So that is criticism. This first paragraph talks about criticism. Be very careful because they might use something that is like a paraphrased version of what you're seeing in the answers, and you might be like, oh, that's not it, or that doesn't relate in any way. Sometimes it does. Just pay attention to it and you would see what you're looking for. So this page talks about criticism. So this makes it into the loop as a potential answer, but this doesn't. So we have 2 left. Okay. He tried to portray that even though Rembrandt was highly regarded in the art world, his prowess and mettle was understood by only a few. The only place where they mentioned something relating to people understanding Rembrandt's art was around this place. See, grossly misunderstood. Grossly misunderstood was understood. That is contrary to what is in the text. So this one also gets ruled out. Here they say, Rembrandt never believed in self-praise and publicizing. Rather, he was a silent artist. Not at all. It doesn't mention anywhere where he's like a silent artist. See where they mention powerful words to describe this man. Revolutionary, liberal, that's very free person. Romantic and bohemian artist. So he wasn't silent in any way if he was revolutionary. That means people knew about him. So this is gone. So your answer here is B. And that is how you answer single answer multiple choice questions under reading. Make sure that you pay attention to the question that is given. First of all, know what the question is asking you to do before you proceed to scan the answers and look at the text for where this answer might fall and see if it fits as an answer to the question that was given. Okay? Thank you. We're finally down to the last part, which is writing essay. One really good tip that I'm going to give you here is when it comes to writing essays, like I mentioned in that beginning part, just keep it minimal. Use simple, clear sentences. Don't use overly complex words, and just make sure that you have about 4 paragraphs. Your introduction, 2 body paragraphs, and of course your conclusion. A good example of where you can find structured templates is the languageacademy.com.au. This is the exact website that I use to practice this, and E2 language.com. Yep, they're called, this is on YouTube as E2 PTE. And this is on YouTube as Language Academy PTE. So look for structured templates and let those templates, don't just practice one template for writing. Remember that there are different ways that looks that the essay can actually take. So it's very important that you structure your essay the right way. Now the final one that we're going to be looking at is the RWFIB. I'm just going to go over the tips that you can use. So you have to focus on grammar and meaning in order for you to choose the right word. So grammar, is this a correct sentence structure? For example, if there is something like she dash a person, right? And you see that you can drag words such as is or where, that's W-E-R-E, and you know that she is referring to one person, they're just referring to one subject in this case. You can't write she were a person. That grammar is not correct. That's a blunder. So is. She is a person. That is the correct grammar. And it makes sense because the meaning is that using is there is relative to her being one person, her being one subject. Okay? Now the next tip is to use words that naturally go together. They are known as collocations. Now, with this, right, it's kind of like how maybe they put something down like he's a dash drinker, and there's an option of heavy and powerful. You know how they say things like, oh, he's a heavy drinker, or she's a heavy drinker, right? These are collocations, the words that we often use together. You can't just say she's a powerful drinker here. Like, it's not a show of strength. It's a heavy drinker. Like, this person likes to drink a lot. So that's just what it is. We look out for words that naturally go together, that we naturally speak English, and then we just put them together. Another tip is to read the sentence with each option to see which one goes best, who goes best together or sounds correct. So yes, pay attention to the sentence. Always read to be sure, because in the exams hall you might be under so much tension and pressure that you might even think she were a person sounds about right, to be very honest, and you might just end up selecting the wrong thing. So always make sure to go over the sentence in your head, say it out, read the sentence. She were a person, that makes no sense. She's a person, oh, that sounds about right, So read the sentence just to make sure that whatever option that you're choosing sounds right or goes together, because in that situation, that is your correct answer. All right, so finally we're down to the end of this lecture. Here are my well-rounded test tips. Number 1, just make sure that you manage your time properly, okay? Don't spend too much time on one question. You don't have all day. 2, practice speaking. Practice your speaking. Don't rush. Work on your flow and your fluency, and of course the clarity of your speech. Whatever you're saying, make sure that someone else can understand what you're saying. That's why I highly recommend recording yourself while speaking. It's a very good thing. So make sure that you're recording yourself speak just to see how well you're doing, and then you work on anything that you may be lacking in. For example, if you listen to the speaking and you notice that you're speaking too fast, you might want to work on slowing down your pace a little bit, see how well you sound. Time yourself and then try to speak and record yourself while speaking so you can see how you sound afterwards. 3rd tip, practice writing essays using templates so you can confidently approach any essay question type, okay? I recommend using E2 PTE for this and Language Academy, okay? These are the 2 materials or sources of materials that I used, and believe me, I would not come on here and share something that did not work for me. They really made the entire thing very simplified. You just have to keep an open mind whilst you practice. And finally, practice listening and reading every day to improve comprehension. Comprehension is just in the way that you understand things, okay? That being said, I wish you the very best. Go forth and conquer your PTE test. Thank you so much for attending this lecture. That will be all for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to include it in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to respond to you. In the meantime, until I come your way next time, remain happy, healthy, and of course, wealthy. Bye.
Every single day, I'm gonna make something